Welcome to this episode of the Food and Travel Podcast by Cuisines. I'm your host, Andrew Rubin, and I'm so excited for today's episode. We will be discussing the best St. Louis metropolitan area restaurants. I will say my pick and St. Louis's pick for the best St. Louis restaurant in each category. Then afterwards, I will talk about our St. Louis barbecue blend. Without further ado, let's get started with some coffee. My favorite coffee place in St. Louis is Picasso's Coffee. It is located in downtown St. Charles, and I really think they have some amazing coffee. I personally like getting their lattes, and they also really just have a great environment, a great vibe. The area of downtown St. Charles is really nice, and it's really just a nice boutique coffee place. They also even have a mini stage to do concerts, so it's really a great place to be any day of the week. The St. Louis pick for coffee, I believe, is Coma Coffee in Richmond Heights. It's a very well-known coffee shop and very loved. A lot of people really like their great presentations, and they have a lot of unique blends from countries like Ethiopia and Kenya. So if you're looking for a great cup of coffee, Coma Coffee is also another place to go to. Next, let's move on to a St. Louis classic. Pizza is very well known in St. Louis, as we have our own style of pizza that is very unique. The style of pizza is made on thin crust and uses Provel cheese, which is very unique and tastes a lot different from a lot of other types of pizza, but many St. Louisans and tourists alike really love the St. Louis style of pizza. I recommend going to Emo's Pizza, which is arguably the most famous pizza place in St. Louis. They have many locations throughout the area, and I recommend just going with a classic cheese pizza because St. Louis style pizza is so unique as it is that just getting classic cheese would be a great option, especially for a first timer. However, St. Louisans would tell you that Dewey's Pizza is their favorite. Dewey's Pizza has multiple locations, and while it isn't as big as Emo's, it's very popular, and a lot more local St. Louisans likes Dewey's Pizza, and I feel like Emo's is more of a touristy place than Dewey's, which is more of the classic hometown St. Louis style pizza place. Next, you can't mention St. Louis without mentioning the barbecue scene. St. Louis is world famous for barbecue, which is why it was one of the first flavors I decided to have when starting State Street Spices. My favorite barbecue restaurant in St. Louis is Sugarfire Smokehouse, which has many locations throughout the metropolitan area. I personally like the brisket leather best, and they also have a lot of different sauces to try. If you're going out for the first time, I'd recommend trying all the sauces to see which is your favorite, because they have a lot of unique options. The St. Louis pick for barbecue would definitely be Pappy's Smokehouse. It is the most well-known barbecue restaurant in St. Louis, and a lot of local St. Louisans really love Pappy's. They are most well-known for their ribs and their sweet potato fries, but there's really no going wrong at Pappy's Smokehouse. Pappy's has restaurants in St. Peter's and in Midtown, with the original location being the Midtown location. St. Louis is also very well known for their pasta, especially in the Hill, which is the Italian neighborhood of St. Louis. My favorite pasta restaurant in St. Louis is Ragazzi's on the Hill. I personally like the lasagna, however there's really no going wrong here. They also have really good toasted ravioli, which is arguably the most famous dish in St. Louis. So if you're ever in the Hill neighborhood, I'd highly recommend going to Ragazzi's for the toasted ravioli and pasta dishes. St. Louis's pick for pasta has to go to Katie's Pizza and Pasta. They have multiple locations, including in Ballpark Village, which is right next to Busch Stadium. Katie's Pizza and Pasta has a lot of great options. I've personally never been there for lunch or dinner. However, I've got some of their desserts, and they have a lot of good desserts. So I recommend going there, whether it's for pizza, pasta, or desserts. All of their menu is a great option and is well known in St. Louis. Moving on, St. Louis has a lot of good Chinese restaurants. My favorite Chinese restaurant is Corner 17 in the Loop. I really love their sesame chicken, and they also have a lot of good juices, boba teas, and slushies. They also are very well known for their soup and stir fries. There's really no going wrong at Corner 17. They have a big menu and have something for everyone. I also believe Corner 17 is St. Louis's pick. I think it's the most famous and tastiest Chinese restaurant according to most St. Louisans. However, I would also like to give an honorable mention of Yang Cheng, which is in Richmond Heights near the St. Louis Galleria. They have a lot of great options. However, the Yang Cheng beef is one of my favorite foods I've ever had, and I'd highly recommend going there if you're in the Richmond Heights area. Moving on, another category me and most St. Louisans agree on is tacos. For tacos, the best restaurant in St. Louis is Mission Taco. They have multiple locations, but I recommend the downtown Corkwood one, or they also have one in Busch Stadium. Both of these have really good atmospheres to it, so if you're at Busch Stadium or in the downtown Corkwood area, I'd recommend going to their Mission Tacos. There's really no going wrong for Mission Taco. They have a lot of great taco options. And however, I would like to give an honorable mention to Circle 7 Ranch, which is a very well-known restaurant in St. Louis, but people don't talk about the tacos as much as I think they should. I personally really like the tacos at Circle 7 Ranch, and definitely think it's a great spot if you're ever in the area. Lastly, let's talk about desserts. The best dessert place in St. Louis is hands down Ted Drew's frozen custard. While a lot of St. Louisans think that Ted Drew's is overhyped, I think that Ted Drew's is perfect. The frozen custard is so amazing, and I think most St. Louisans would also agree with me on this pick. If you're going there for the first time, I'd recommend the chocolate chip cookie dough frozen custard. It's a really amazing frozen custard, and I'd highly recommend it. I do though want to give an honorable mention to Patty's Cheesecakes. I've heard a lot of great things about it, and it's also another well-known St. Louis dessert spot. So if you're in the area of Patty Cheesecakes, I'd recommend trying that as well. Before we end the podcast, I would love to talk about the St. Louis barbecue blend. With all this talk about St. Louis restaurants, I think it's important to mention the State Street Spices St. Louis barbecue blend, which is a sweeter, mild blend. And our mild spice mix is a symphony of flavors that will elevate your cooking experience. With the perfect balance of flavors, this blend enhances the flavor of all of your foods, infusing them with a taste of classic St. Louis barbecue. Whether you're making popcorn or grilling chicken, our St. Louis barbecue spice mix is right for creating unforgettable dishes that will have everyone wanting more. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Food and Travel Podcast by State Street Spices. I'm excited for next episode, which will talk about a different region of the United States and our top 10 food cities. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. Use the code SPICE10, that's SPICE 10, at checkout on StateStreetSpices.com to get 10% off your next order. Thank you.